Welcome to Thieves' Cant, a tabletop gaming podcast, with your hosts, Jeremy Shane and Chris White.
Welcome in and welcome back. It is Saturday, July. Did you just clear your throat?
I did, yes. Right there.
It is Saturday, July 12th. I'm Jeremy Shane.
I'm Chris White.
With a clear throat.
Feeling good.
Welcome back to Thieves' Cant. Chris, you're wearing your Lawful Good t-shirt today.
I know what's right. I know what's right.
Yeah?
You chaotic people. I'm not having it.
Are you running on temporary hit points today?
No, I am at max. I'm just waiting on those temporary hit points to hit. If you don't use your ability, I'll use mine. So either way, we're going to get some.
Hey, we're gaming later on today. It's a game day after the show, which always makes for a jam-packed morning in real time for us.
I woke up this morning, I stretched, and I said, TPK. It's coming today.
It very well may be. Hey, thanks again for listening. Thanks for following Thieves' Cant on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. We're on social at Thieves' Cant Cast and on YouTube at Thieves' Cant Cast. I actually got that updated to be aligned with all the other things. I won't get into it too deeply, but YouTube makes you wait a little while before you make any edits to anything. So I've been waiting to make all things just Thieves' Cant Cast. And finally, thanks to YouTube, I have been allowed to do so.
So it's on now.
Right.
This is going to change it. Get ready. I'm kind of thinking about quitting my job today.
Yeah?
You think?
Yeah. I might want to hold off on that.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
email thievescantcast@gmail.com. Hey, in today's episode, D&D has announced its shift to a franchise model. Free League has a couple of new goodies on the way in the form of minis and starter sets. And Humble Bundle is giving you a great deal on an absolute haul of RPG products. And our main topic, though, we're discussing working with lore in your RPG. But first, it is the Thieves' Cant question of the week. Chris, since this week's main topic is all about mastering lore, what's one piece of lore from a campaign setting that hooked you as a player or as a game master, and why did it stick with you?
Well, I can't tell you the big one, because it's active in the campaign you're playing in right now.
Oh, my.
So, but one I can tell you for sure, for me, as far as lore goes, like, it was Dragonlance.
Yeah.
Like, I loved the Dragonlance novels. Especially like Lord Soth.
Right.
And like all that history around that, and the knights, all the different knighthoods, the Knights of the Rose and the Crown, all that, and the wizards with the different colored robes, and so yeah, Dragonlance lore to me was it just drew me in. Like, I just wanted to play in that world. So
was it one of your first real experiences with the genre, with fantasy, or?
Yeah. I would say. And we never really I never actually got to play in a Dragonlance campaign. I always wanted to, but there were always elements that I found a lot of DMs took from Dragonlance and brought in. And of course, Ravenloft, everybody shows up there at some point or another.
Yeah.
But,
no, that's a good call. Dragonlance lore. My pick, Night's Black Agents, the Dracula dossier, the big campaign for Night's Black Agents. The campaign revolves around an annotated, unredacted copy of Dracula, which is actually, turns out, a classified document that reveals the novel as a cover-up for real vampire conspiracies.
Wow.
And so it's actually an in-game artifact. You have a physical copy at the book that players are referencing with, little annotations in the margins, certain passages circled. It is amazing, and what a cool way to create in-game lore using real-world stuff.
That sounds really fun. That's neat.
Yeah. That's another bucket list campaign. We'll see if that ever makes it to the table.
Okay. All right.
I don't know. All right, let's get to it. On to headlines. whatever this means to you, let me know, because I'm still trying to suss it out here. D&D has announced a shift to a franchise model. Dan Ayub named as the head. He was the former VP of Digital Games, and now he is the VP of Franchise. In his words, the new model means that everything related to D&D, and that's books, video games, film, TV, is now going to live under one roof. He states that this model will allow for a, quote, strong, coordinated, and well-funded approach for the franchise.
I don't really know what this means. I think it's really the specifics. You know, if it's as simple as, hey, the same people are going to be making the D&D bottle opener as are making the D&D nightlight, then it's like, I don't care.
Right.
I don't care. But, you know, if it's, he mentions books, and I guess my question was, is this referring to novels, or is this referring to rule books going forward?
Right. Or both.
Right. Are they contracting out D&D? I guess is really the question. And I don't know enough about the inner workings there or the details of what this means to say that. But I guess that would be my biggest question, would be who's making D&D going forward? Is it still going to be WotC proper or someone else?
Sure. We've seen them, outsource work to third parties previously, in terms of adventures. You think about the initial, 3-4 adventures or so that were released under the 2014 rule books. You had Kobold Press writing Tyranny of Dragons. You had Green Ronin wrote one of the adventures. Several different companies with their name on the D&D rule book right next to WotC. So outsourcing is not anything new, but in terms of outsourcing the rules themselves, as you suggest, could happen, or question if that could happen.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And it kind of follows Hasbro's model. They don't make G.I. Joe anymore. They contract that out to another company. They don't make Transformers anymore. They contract out to another company. And so I don't know. Are they going to apply a model like that to D&D, or do they have something else in mind? It's hard to say at this point.
Right. Not knowing exactly what this means, well, you even notice a difference here.
Right.
I mean, what does it mean? What does it mean for the consumer?
Right.
If anything.
Right. We know something happened.
Right.
We just don't really know what it was,
right,
or what the effects are going to be.
Yeah. So more details to come, perhaps, or not. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? A side note, also announced that former D&D VP Jess Lanzillo, she's been named creative director over at White Wolf, leading development for all World of Darkness story worlds, vampire and werewolf, and so forth. Moving on, a couple of Free League notes. Man, Dragonbane. I really need to get my hands on a copy of Dragonbane. They've got some new minis coming soon to Kickstarter. The launch page is actually already up. Link in the show notes. Titan Forge is handling the minis, and they are awesome. If you've not had a chance to take a look at these. Right now, the launch page is showcasing 4 different sets. The adult dragon, and then a separate set of smaller dragons. There's a demon set and a hero set. These are all unpainted minis right now, but what will stretch goals look like? Or are we going to unlock maybe painted minis? Are we going to unlock additional sets? Maybe add to these sets, make them bigger than they are? I don't know. But if you're a Dragonbane player and you've been waiting for official minis, well, you won't have to wait too much longer.
And whoever you are, Dragon minis are just kind of awesome. So
no word on when the project launches, but again, a link for the pages in the show notes if you want to track it yourself. New starter sets are coming for the One Ring and the Lord of the Rings 5e role-playing games, also from Free League. These are going to release at Gen Con, July 31st. $29.99 will get you a poster map, rule books, pre-gens, tokens, dice, as well as the adventure Over and Under Hill, set in the wildlands of northern Eriador. So it's the same contents in each box set. It's just a matter of which system do you prefer. Do you want the One Ring or do you want the 5e version? I know which one I'd pick.
Yeah. Yeah. This looks fun. I hope there's a special Hobbit generator built inside. I don't really want to fight Nazgul or anything like that. I just kind of want to be like, I'm going to use my pipeweed skill as I plow to harvest pumpkins and drink ale at the end. Yeah, that's what I want.
Roll for smoking.
Yeah. Roll for good-natured mirth and happiness. So that's the game I want to play.
I like it. So again, those release at the end of the month, July 31st. Okay, that's headlines. Let's bounce over to crowdfunding. Okay, it's not so much a crowdfunding spotlight today, but we do want to take a look at this RPG Megabundle over on Humble Bundle, the Roll Big or Go Home Megabundle. How would you like to own every role-playing game ever published?
I would.
This is not going to get you that, but it's going to get you awfully close, or it's going to keep you busy for a long, long time. $40 is going to get you 57 items. These are mostly core rule books for just an absolute load of role-playing games. Avatar, Modern Age, Savage Worlds, Warhammer, Cyberpunk Red, Dishonored, Transformers, Call of Cthulhu, Dragonbane, Knights Black Agents, The Witcher, G.I. Joe, Root, The Cypher System, RuneQuest is in there. I mean, it goes on and on and on. You can pay less to get fewer titles. There's a $15 and a $25 tier. Proceeds do go to Extra Life and Children's Miracle Network hospitals, which is really cool.
And if I did this, that would be the only reason.
Yeah.
It would just be to be charitable. No, this helps me feel better about it. Not only am I getting some cool games, but I am, it's a good cause too.
Right, right. I don't remember the actual dollar value that they have listed on the page, but it's around $1,500, I think.
Oh my gosh.
The value. So $40, even if you're not going to look at all of these, even if half of them don't interest you, $40 is still a steal for the amount of content that you're getting.
Yeah, but there's some big names here.
There are. If you don't have Call of Cthulhu, and Warhammer, and maybe some others that have always just
Savage Worlds,
right? If those have interested you in the past, great way to get in.
Yeah, that's awesome.
This runs for another 8 days as of this recording, and again, you can find that link in the show notes. All right, that's a spotlight on the Humble Bundle. We've covered headlines, and now let's head over to our main topic. Today, it's all about mastering lore. And Chris, I've got to be honest, really, this topic stems from the conversation we had a couple of weeks back about the challenges of getting a new game to the table. And one of the things that we didn't really touch on in that conversation is just that, mastering lore. That is one of the big reasons that many of the games that I've got on my shelf that maybe I kickstarted, saw at the game store, look cool, word of mouth, I want to play that. That's one of the big reasons those games will never make it to the table because, not only do I need to take into account this new set of rules, unfamiliar to me and my players, but I've got a whole world or maybe even like worlds, universes to learn and histories and timelines. And how do you determine what's important and what's a waste of your time?
Yeah, it can be overwhelming, to say the least. And some of these have lore going back thousands of years.
Right.
It's like, do I have to know all of that?
Right.
I hope not. I don't even know the lore of our world going back to last week. So I'm in trouble.
Yeah, I'll give you what I think is a really good example and showcases the dichotomy between GMs and players, at least in certain types of games. All right, Forbidden Lands from Free League. The basic premise here is that for hundreds of years, people have been kept apart. Small settlements, spaced apart from one another, and individuals don't have much contact with the outside world because of the threat of the blood mist. It's been around as long as people remember, comes out at night. If you're caught in it, you'll never be seen again. right? So it's not safe to travel far from home. So you've got these communities that become very isolated from one another, and that's how it's been for centuries. So on the player side of things, that's pretty much what you know going into it.
Right.
You know your little community, and that's all you have to worry about. And that's great. And you're going to explore the world and learn the lore of the world as you explore.
Mm-hmm.
On the GM side of things, well,
right.
The game is giving you all of those centuries of history, all of the conflicts that have led us to this moment, all of the secrets. And so it's very easy to sit down as a player at that table. It's very difficult to sit down as the game master at that table. Or is it? Am I making this too complicated?
And this is why dungeon masters or game masters or whatever they may be called are special people, right? They always wear 3 hats. They always have to be a rule master, they have to be a lore master, and they have to be a storyteller. And that's a lot in one package to ask for someone. And so anything we can do to make that easier or consider that is probably a positive. Because, as that lore master, you're the one that knows the secrets. You're the one that has to reveal them to the players. The player's responsibility in this is to remember and to experience them, but it's the game master that has to provide that information.
So, as a player, what do you expect from your GM? Because clearly I get in my own head over, what my role as the GM is supposed to be. I've got to master all this lore, but what do you expect on the player side?
Again, everybody's different, right? I mean, and every campaign is different. So, is it a combat-focused campaign? Probably not a lot. We want like big overarching ideas like, at one time the elves ruled everything, and then the dragons came and their empire fell. That's cool. And we're going to run into ruins that are going to explain those things to us and all that. But we don't really need to know that, Reginald III led his army at the Battle of Horntooth and, they were defeated by the dragon. Like, no. Probably the players in a combat heavy campaign aren't focused on that.
They might learn of that battle down the road, right?
Yeah.
But from the onset, what does a player need?
Yeah, what's their expectation from the get-go? Because that's really what you're setting, right? Now, if it's a campaign full of political intrigue, well, then that changes things, right? Maybe some of those historical facts, those families that were involved, maybe that's really important. Maybe that, and maybe you do need to iron out those details beforehand. So it really just depends on what type of campaign you're dealing with.
You're playing like a Game of Thrones style campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you would want to know the history of these houses, who slighted whom, marriages.
Yeah, exactly. Where it shows like the you remember in Game of Thrones they released that comic about the was it the Fossaways, the Green Apple Fossaways?
No, the Hedge Knight.
Yeah, the Hedge Knight.
Yeah, the short story. Yeah.
That was all lore, right? But it all of a sudden it's like where's that family at in the story? I want to know where they're at. I want to, that's the descendant of the guy I read about.
Right.
So that makes it more interesting.
Okay.
And so it depends on what the expectations in many ways are what the players want out of the campaign. If the players desire to know this, they want to be immersed in this world, and they want to know everything about it. Maybe you have a character, and I've played this character, who's a historian. And like, this is what he does because he's waiting for that cool moment he can be like, well, actually, in truth, the king was never poisoned, but it was his mistress, whatever. Right. Like to be able to do those things, and of course, a DM can work with that. But again, if the campaign is like we want to kill dinosaurs, then
right. Okay. Well, all right. Well, let's stick with the campaign that does rely on that history and that lore.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what form should that take? I don't think anybody is raising their hand like asking for a lore dump. I also don't have a lot of interest in reading your 20-page, typed summary prior to the game either.
Well, you're going to be pretty disappointed in today's session then. No, I'm just kidding, obviously.
So whenever you're dealing with a setting that has extensive lore and history that is impactful for the players, how do you master that for yourself? One, as the GM, and two, how do you make that known to your players? Should it happen through emergent play? And the challenge with that for me is, well, if I'm a player, I want to make informed decisions, right? So I need to know this information, but also I'm more interested in just kind of playing and letting things be revealed as we go.
Right.
So there's a lot of circles that you just walk in.
This is why I think a lot of fantasy, a lot of novels, when the hero's journey begins, it starts in a very humble place. You know, Randall Thor, where was he at? A little town in the middle of nowhere,
Sure.
Right? He didn't know anything. He was a country bumpkin. He didn't have any access to that information. And so then as that hero's journey continues, you learn along with that character about all these things. It is a challenge. We're going to have a cosmopolitan setting, and this is where the characters are at. They've lived in this world. Well, they're going to know more than the players at that point. And so that has to be handled differently. And of course, the first question I would ask is this a homebrew campaign or is this a pre-existing world?
Yeah, if it's a homebrew campaign, the challenges are a little different, right?
Sure.
You clearly are a master of your lore because you are writing that lore, assuming the GM is doing all the lifting here, right? So then it's just a question of what's the best way to make this, to reveal this to the players,
right?
Up front or through play. When it comes to homebrew, are you a proponent of the GM just does it all, or do you like the players to have some say in that setting?
As far as the history?
Sure.
You could do either. I mean, the challenge to me is with a pre-created world. Say, for example, you decide I want to run a campaign in the Forgotten Realms, okay? If I have read Forgotten Realms novels for years, and I have played video games set in the Forgotten Realms, and then I'm going to have an incredible familiarity with that setting, right? I'm going to know a lot of lore. I may not know everything, but I'm going to know a lot of the lore, a lot of the characters from the past, all those things, right? However, imagine if that was inversed. Imagine if you're a DM trying to run a Forgotten Realms campaign with players who have read all the novels and who have played all the games.
Right.
Like, you're in a bad situation there, right?
No, thank you.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I mean, no, I don't think so. Right. And so, like, you have to take that into consideration. With a homebrew, this is a mixed bag for me because I think you're the same way, and I think everybody is. You dream about your world, right? You kind of fantasize about your world. You think about the people and the places and what might have happened before. And so as far as the overarching history of a world, a lot of times you have an idea, right? I mean, you may not know every detail, but there used to be dinosaurs and people lived in caves and then this magic stone was found. You kind of are filling that stuff in. You may not have every detail, but you're going to have that overarching story, and you can kind of make the details up as you go, as you need to. You're like, okay, I know some caveman found this stone in the depths, and his name, I'm going to come up with a name for him, and he was remembered. He's a great hero. In fact, you know what? They named a city after him, and it's still there. Whatever it may be, you can kind of fill some of that in because it's yours. You've been building that story in your mind the whole time, because most people, when they create a world, it's not just, wouldn't it be cool if there was a castle over on this hill and like a dragon that lived in a cave over here? You start filling in some of those blanks, right? Because you want to know that lore and you're creating that lore. So homebrew has an advantage in that sense, but at the same time, it's all you.
Right.
Now,
so how do you let the players into that?
Right. How do you involve the players? That's a really good question. I don't know if I have a really good answer. Obviously, you're going to have things like character backstory. So for me, this is a big one. Anytime characters come to me with a backstory, hey, my family's rich and powerful, and they came from, and they came from this location and this and this. Okay, well, now that family is a part of that location, right? And so I'm going to stick them in there, and now I need to think about, some of his ancestors and what those were. Maybe the player can help me answer some questions with that. But suddenly, like, that vein of lore is very rich, right? Because it ties into that player. A great example to me, years ago, when you'd first started playing D&D, you had your character Josiah, right?
Yeah.
And he was the
Free Prince of the Sea Barons.
The Free Prince of the Sea Barons, right?
Quarterstaff guy.
Yeah, exactly. But that's cool. And, like, everybody at the table was like, wow, that's pretty cool. I like that. And all of a sudden it's like, what's the Sea Barons? You know, like, suddenly we're interested in that. And you're a prince of the Sea Barons, you know? I mean, it just, it opened up this whole path of lore that nobody had any interest in prior to that. And so just in players creating interesting characters and interesting backgrounds, they shine a spotlight on things that are outside of the campaign's focus, which in a lot of ways is what lore is. It's what makes it so rich. It's what makes a world alive, is that, oh, you know what? We're here. We're focused on fighting the Lich. We're focused on this adventure, but there's a whole world out there. What are the Sea Barons? You know, what is this place that I've never heard of? And you know, well, what's it like? You know, what happens there? What does this mean that you're a prince? You know, all these details makes it come alive. It expands the world. And so players, just by creating a good backstory and good characters, are automatically contributing to the lore of a world.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be this multi-page backstory.
Right.
It can just be a couple of bullet points. That's enough.
Yeah.
To weave in and then go deeper.
Well, how many times have you seen a player who's playing something maybe a little more exotic? Maybe it's the guy playing maybe he's playing or girl playing a kobold, right? If they're attempting to play that thing, you know, they're investing in it, and suddenly the party is getting information about kobold society. They're getting information about, the ecology of that creature. They're getting information about where they live and what their homes are like and what their hygiene is like, or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
You know, and so
all of it.
That's all lore. Like, that's all making the world more and more rich. And so can a player contribute? Absolutely.
And that is another way to make player choice matter. I think whenever we hear that phrase, you know, player agency, let player choice matter, I think oftentimes we're thinking in narrative, but just character choice in the character build itself.
Right.
Should inform some of the world that we see.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Well, I mean, think about it. Go back to the example of a kobold. The kobold, you know, maybe they say, oh yeah, you know, we always groom each other. And so this is the thing I'm doing. He's doing to party members, right? He's going up and he's grooming their hair, right? Like a monkey or something, you know?
Yeah.
The DM may be like, I've never thought that kobolds did that, but you know what? Now they do. Because that's kind of cool.
Right.
I mean, you can take that too far. And obviously I think a player like that communicating with the DM to get that idea is pretty cool. But sometimes players can surprise you. You're like, you know what? It kind of makes sense given the kobold community. Maybe they would groom each other. This is kind of, okay, you know what? They do now. You know, it's just, you can use those things sometimes. Sometimes players help create a world just as much as the DM does.
Yeah, it's characterization, it's story, and it's a bit of world building as well. To me, what really stands out in this conversation is in the midst of fixating on lore, on the big picture, really the solution is to zoom in as far as you can on that character level and just build out from there, much in the way that game designers, world designers will tell you. If you're world building, start with that small settlement and build out.
Right.
So maybe when it comes to lore, start with the characters and what they are. Oh, you played an elf. Well, we should explore elves in this world.
Yeah.
Whatever the character has chosen,
Yes.
that's the lore that you focus on.
Yeah, and if you know, okay, we've started small. We started in a small hamlet. Yeah, we've looked at some of the basic information that somebody in this world should have. Not necessarily every detail, but just basic information. I mean, if you think about it, there are a lot of people in this country that can't tell you the name of the president, or certainly not, you know, the president 10 or 15 years ago, right?
Right.
So not everybody can do that. That's not their focus. But focus on the details that they need to know. Then, okay, they've decided they're going to go explore this old dwarven crypt. Okay? Cool. I should probably figure out some lore about these dwarves. Maybe I can reveal a piece of that. Okay? So, I mean, because there's a lot of different things you can take away from a dungeon, for example. You could walk in and you could take out some treasure. But you could also walk in and take away some knowledge that you didn't have, right? And so suddenly those characters know more than they did before.
Yeah.
Maybe they know about the Dwarven King. Maybe they know about his downfall. Maybe there's a lesson to be learned there. Maybe there's a hook that could lead to another adventure.
Right. That could lead to more information, because whenever you give them that reveal, it doesn't have to be all of it.
Right.
Again, it's little bites here and there. I have to remind myself as a GM that I'm not going to be taking a test over any of this material.
That's right.
And neither are my players. So you don't have to worry about the entirety of that lore all at once.
And you know what? Everybody messes up. Sometimes you just be like, hey, guys, I know I told you that the dwarves won that war. Yeah, I kind of got that wrong.
Yeah.
It turns out they didn't.
Well, let's talk a little about that, like retconning.
Yeah.
Retconning lore. I mean, you've established something, and all of a sudden there's a contradiction. What are some ways that you can handle that? I mean, as you just said, you can just be upfront and open. Look, I made a mistake here. It's actually this.
I've never had a gaming group seriously be like, well, that's unacceptable.
Right, I'm going to flip this table and walk out, bro. Right?
Right, because surely most players recognize that the DM is juggling a lot while he's playing. So,
in what context is the discrepancy in information arising? Is it through conversation with another NPC?
Right.
Is it from a source, maybe some old journals that they found, whatever it might be? Oh, there's always a way that you could spin that. You mean there might be misinformation somewhere? Sure. Stories change depending on who is telling the story.
Right.
If it's coming from an NPC, well, this is the version that they heard. It's what they know to be true. That might be an opportunity. Maybe you don't need to retcon anything. Maybe you just leave it out there. There are many possible truths here.
Unreliable sources.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
I mean, because as a GM, I am an unreliable source.
You bring up a great point. So let's say I get
I often do.
It happens often. Thank you. So we go into the Dwarven, whatever.
You said crypt earlier, I think?
Dwarven crypt, right? And we get this information, and it says the dwarves won this great battle, and this was the hero, and such. But further down the line, maybe I did screw up. Maybe the whole time I had him written as, no, the orcs won that fight. All of a sudden, I get to a different location, maybe a great library, and, well, this information contradicts, right? And again, when we're talking about this is really deep. Like, these are players that are really invested in history, unless you're just pointing it out, right? So the odds of anyone even putting this together, but maybe they find out, the dwarves didn't do well at all. And the king, he lost a big strategic battle against these orcs. Okay, well, but that's not what the dwarves would have said, right? I mean, they wanted to remember their hero king as being awesome and fallen, beneath the axes of 1,000 orcs,
sure.
Right? So, you're exactly right. Everybody in a world, just like our world, has an agenda. Everybody has interest. Everybody sees things from their perspective. And so it's very possible that lore, and this is not what we want to do, because if I write a piece of lore, I want to vomit it on you, and then I want to be like, now you got it, right? And that's done. But it really, that's not always the best way. I mean, handing out disinformation, whether intentional or unintentional, happens all the time. So that's something that you can play with. All of a sudden now we have this is a completely different story about this great battle that happened. And there's an impact to this, to the dwarves and the orcs that echoes, throughout even to today. Right. And so that's some interesting knowledge to have. There's, three sides to every story. Right.
Right. So. Circling back, clearly, I think you and I agree at least that this hybrid approach of of the GM has his or her setting, however much they have defined about it, and they're being open and loose enough to let the players have some say in what we explore and what we reveal next. I like that approach.
Mm-hmm.
You like that approach?
Yep.
But if we circle back to, you kind of brought up that Game of Thrones style game, that situation where maybe the players are more aware, or at least the characters are more aware of the history of things, of relationships and interests that go back centuries.
Mm-hmm.
In that sort of game, I mean, what is the best approach to disseminating that information? Is it just a simple matter of, well, here's some information that I'm going to give to you about the world. You kind of just need to know it. And everybody just needs to suck it up and absorb the lore dump.
Yeah.
Embrace the dump.
Yeah. You don't really have a choice to some point. I mean, if that's the kind of campaign the players want to engage in, that's going to be your focus for your prep, right? You're not going to prep 3 combats for that, for that adventuring day. You're going to prep some lore. You're going to prep some NPCs with backgrounds. You're going to prep some history. And so there's an obligation at the same time for the players to spend some prep time getting ready to understand, okay, who's this guy we're going to meet? What do I know about him? What should I know about him? Maybe I want to dig a little deeper and find out more about him, right? Maybe I can use that against him, or maybe I can use it as leverage. Like, that's how the players and the GM have to shift their mindset to accommodate that type of game. I mean, all of a sudden, this isn't a battle with swords and shields. This is a battle of words. This is a battle of knowledge and understanding. And so there's a lot of potential for an incredible game in that, but it requires tremendous effort from the GM. It also requires tremendous effort from the players
and buy-in overall. Everybody's got to be invested.
You got to buy in. That's exactly right.
Final thoughts on mastering lore.
It's a lot of work, but it is rewarding when you have a rich world that's just full of surprises, and you can get players to buy in on that, but they're interested in, let me jot that down. I mean, it's kind of cool when players are taking notes, and it's kind of cool, especially for me, because I'm terrible at taking notes, when I can be like, yeah, you hear this name. Oh, I've heard that. Let me go back. Oh yeah. When we were back, 6 sessions ago, we saw that name, written on a wall, and we were trying to figure out what it means. Oh, okay. Well, this applies. When those pieces start coming together, that feels good, and it's fun.
I think that's a great way to close it. Focus on the pieces. I think whether you are homebrewing, you're running a pre-written setting, start small. I think that's always the best guidance, is to start small, focus on the characters, and always build out from that small starting point.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. That is going to do it for another episode of Thieves Can't. If you want to hit us up, respond to anything you heard on today's show about mastering lore, what's your approach? You can email thievescantcast@gmail.com, and that'll do it. We are off to the gaming table today.
Yeah. Think about them. Pray for them. They're about to meet some real challenges today.
We'll have an update next week. Have a great week of gaming. And as always, a great week of life, and we will see you next time. I'm Jeremy.
And I'm Chris.
It's been Thieves Can't. So long.
Thank you for listening to Thieves Can't. Email thievescantcast@gmail.com.